Hello and welcome to Cannabis is Not the Answer. My name is Shieff and I want to make a video now about something that I've been, noticing for a while now on the internet and primarily on YouTube, and that is all of this, you can say, divide and conquer, but it is mainly about diet that is going on, and primarily through some of the YouTubers I've been following, like for example Tim Shieff, but also Casey from Vegetable Police and some others, where some vegans came out and were announcing that the diet doesn't work for them anymore, and they have changed their diets, and this whole dogmatic and the uproar that was against those people was very interesting, because I mean, these are very, as I see it, very authentic people, and it really seemed like they really wanted to make this work, and they really believed in the compassionate aspects of the vegan diet, but it didn't work. And I believe it is very important to constantly go with this flow of authenticity, that there's nothing to live up to. I mean, and this is what I saw, that for example with Tim Shieff, I mean, he did this was 35 days water fast, and this brings so much to the surface, and I believe that a lot of the things that he was challenged by afterwards was exactly what the fast brought up. I mean, we're always trying to understand things from a linear perspective, but that is just, something's coming up. We're getting the opportunity to meet ourselves from another perspective, and that is exactly what I believe. For example, Tim, he got the opportunity to do, and for Tim, I don't know, I've met Tim once. It was a bit, call it coincidental, if we believe in these kind of way to portray the experience. But I met Tim like about 10 years ago because he was, stayed a weekend in Copenhagen at a student dorm where I was living. So we ended up sitting in my room and, talked throughout the night, and it was very interesting. Also because it was not until, I don't know, sitting for hours where they mentioned something about the World Cup, and I was like, wow, you were in the free running World Cup? And then his friend told me he actually won it. He won it. And the reason why I say this is because, I already back then experienced Tim as a very humble man who didn't, he didn't have anything to live up to in that sense. He was just himself, and so it was very interesting later on. I was a raw foodist back then, and to see Tim afterwards coming out and being such an awesome spokesperson for the vegan community. And this is of course also then one of the challenges that then may have come into his experience, and that is that to let go of identity. And because always when we are having a limiting version of ourselves, at some point there will be it will hurt. It will be a certain pain where we're holding on to something. And that is because in the end, the Buddhists say that life is suffering because we are in the end holding on to life. But anyways, but when I then saw like what Tim, especially, I don't know forgot what this video was called, where he came out and he announced that he has been eating some non-vegan foods, and then afterwards the video where he seemed like, I believe vulnerability is a very, very powerful thing, and I really like when people are vulnerable, basically. But Tim, he seemed more than vulnerable. He seemed hurt, and it seemed like he regretted his actions. And I mean, it is so awesome to see him being so authentic and walking this path. But of course, he got into a lot of shit. I mean, when I was just reading some of, I'm not even on his own channel, because he seems like he has a very awesome following. cool people usually attract cool people in a sense. But it was more the other videos. I saw some of them on this one guy called Vegan Gains or something. Holy fuck, man. I mean, that was a lot of negativity and projections. But of course, he's also hurt somewhere, like most of us are, and apparently deals with it by, projecting it onto others. So yeah, but it is this war that is rage, also against Casey from Vegetable Police, and especially lately because he has been, really experimenting a lot, which I believe is really, really call it a brave thing to do. But it takes some courage and some authenticity and some, faith in yourself to do these various things. I mean, I would not break a water fast with an egg like he did. But I don't know shit when it comes to it, and I'm always willing to let go of everything that I, dare to call a truth. But then people are saying on the comments, "Are you fucking stupid? Listen to a doctor or whatever." And it's like, a doctor? I mean, I would go to a doctor, to get, like a diagnosis or something. But to get health advice, I would not get that from a doctor. I mean, doctors, the profession being a doctor has among the lowest life expectancy there is. And so they're not really the ones I wanted to go there to get health. If I want to know something about medicine, to medicate myself, then I would go to someone who has studied medicine for a lot of years. But if I want to know something about health, about healing, an allopathic doctor is definitely not someone I would go to get advice on that. But of course, people would always, just if something doesn't work, then stupid, why don't you take chemotherapy? I told you, or something like this, But a lot of these people who are out there now on their fucking own, taking their health into their own hands, these are, the scientists of today, the health activists of YouTube. But we're all in this, and none of us knows what the fuck is going on. We all have our ideas, and now I found out we're holding on to this truth until this all of a sudden doesn't work anymore, and it will be painful until we let go of that. And in that sense, we are all basically on our own now, trying to find out what is going on. And most of us will find out that none of these truths are permanent. This works for me for a certain while, and all of a sudden it doesn't work anymore. I don't know. But I just believe that it is because we need to meet ourselves at a certain level, and it can be through a certain diet, it can be through a certain method of, activity or a drug, or I don't know. But if we go all the time with this authentic, on this path, and we're meeting ourselves there and trying to, to love ourselves, and to have as little resistance towards ourselves and the feelings that may arise, the more we can meet ourselves and eventually let go of that. And the less we are able of resisting that pain, the less we will suffer. And the less, or the more we are capable at not living life through a template, or through a certain way of expecting, or some really just being with ourselves right here, the more I believe we have capacity for what we call healing. So when we're seeing these people, like for example, Vegetable Police or Tim Shieff, who are going through this path of walking that authentic path, and to some people it may not look like healing, but to meet ourselves and be confronted with these pains, that is a very, very powerful thing to do. So all these people are talking shit about this, and they are just, doing their antibiotics and taking their painkillers or whatever. I mean, this is just talking from different perspectives or levels, or call it what you want. The ones are better than the other, but the one is taking more responsibility and gives you a better ability to respond to your life. So I think this is a really, really beautiful in a sense to watch. But then, for example, also Goji Man is his name, is another YouTuber, which I believe, I really like this guy. I think he comes from a really authentic place and really wants to help. But this is, from my perspective, a very one-sided approach. He has this very intellectual approach, and I didn't, study him too much. So if I'm wrong on my, how I describe him, all right, but it just seems like the solution is always, a mineral or a supplement or something, intellectual. And he's talking about vegetable police and Tim, how you're just masking symptoms. No, yeah, that might be, but really mask symptoms is something like supplements. These, when you are lacking these various things, they are just an expression of a lack of being whole. Like health is, the Danish word for health is helbred, and that means as much as hel means whole, bred is an old term for moment. So it's a question of how whole, how little resistance to who you truly are, which is love, do you have in this moment. And the more you have that, the more you will heal, basically. So to think that some supplements is the solution, that is a bit like someone who has depression or doesn't feel enough love in his life. So you make a brain scan, you say, oh well, you have too little love, yeah, and love is just these chemicals reacting, so we need to raise the value of these chemicals in your brain. So you're starting eat all kinds of minerals, or even some neurotransmitters or whatever, because you want to enhance these chemicals in your brain that represent love. But this is having it totally backwards. These things will never get you to love more if the reason for your lack of love is that you are hating your parents, or you are like ashamed of yourself or whatever. So these, when we are having a look at our body, of the levels of various chemicals or whatever, this is just an expression of something that is beyond the intellectual. So to think that you will solve your problems, your deep, your ability to cope with who you truly are, with taking some pills, this is again just a way to manage symptoms. So even though I definitely believe that the approach of Goji Man can be helpful, because you can also manipulate the body and these kind of things and then have a different experience, but you need to change something within your experience, your take on your life, or the way you act or whatever. So there are a lot of these people, who are using, holding up this template of how we've been taught that health works, that obviously doesn't work, like allopathic medicine. So, from all sides there are various suggestions and perspectives of how to get in to health. And this is just, my perspective is that it's all about being aligned with ourselves, with who we truly are. So none of these things. Also, Vegetable Police made a video some days ago about, will eating this meat, will that heal your depression? And from my perspective, absolutely not. None of these methods will solve these kind of things. It may be that when you're eating this, that you are meeting yourself from a lower level, and there you can let go of certain sides of yourself that will then, take away a burden, from your shoulders or whatever. But these things will never be fixed from the outside. We can manipulate ourselves, meet ourselves from a different perspective, and thereby let go of some things, and thereby have a different experience. But these kind of dis-ease are as I see it, only helped by ease. And that is what we call love, which is an allowance of who we truly are. Or it is an absence of an idea that anything should be any different. And when we can live from that place, live from the inside and out, without living up to anything, without resisting anything, without holding on to anything, that is when healing will take place. And that is also why a lot of people that I've spoken to have like fasting retreats. They're talking about that a person, for example, comes into the water fast with a magnesium deficiency, and after 21 days on only water, they don't have that deficiency anymore. So where does this, you can call it mineral, come from? It is just an expression of how whole you are. So this was my perspective, and thanks a lot for anyone who is authentic and puts himself out there in a vulnerable way without holding on to any identity and just sharing themselves and their love just because, basically. So take care, much love, bye bye.